and identity intertwine. He spent several years in Latin America, an experience that inspired his debut novel La Victoria, which blends myth and realism and was recently adapted into a stage production in Copenhagen, for which he also showcased his talent as an actor. Is that true? Oh, wow. So their presence brings an inspiring international perspective and will, I'm sure, spark many creative conversations with festival participants this coming weekend. By supporting PAGYA, the embassy highlights the strong cultural ties between Ghana and the Netherlands. We believe in the power of literature to connect people, to share knowledge, and to tell untold stories. So festivals like these also help support young writers, artists, and entrepreneurs in Ghana's literary and publishing scene. So to everyone here tonight, writers, readers, and lovers of literature alike, welcome. Let's enjoy 3 days of stories, creativity, and conversation. Enjoy this beautiful weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Her Excellency. We've had support for 3 years of PAGYA, and we hope that come our 10th year, we can count on your support again. Thank you so much. So before I call the next person on stage, some of the countries represented at PAGYA this year include Senegal, Togo, Nigeria, Liberia, Italy, the Netherlands, Ireland. I will continue the list when I come back. Next on stage would be the director of the Goethe Institute, Maximilian Nanaya. I hired a bad lawyer. I mean, I thought you were going to help me. Maximilian Rotka.
Good evening, hello. Wow, I wanted to take a picture. It's really a nice audience here. Yeah, welcome everyone. It's my great honor and pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the Goethe Institute Ghana and to this year's PAGYA Literary Arts Festival. I would like to start my speech with a short anecdote. So I remember when I was a child, books didn't really seem to me too exciting at first. Maybe I had too much energy to sit still and read, and I'm sure many others felt or still feel the same way, like I did, especially also nowadays in these fast-paced environments. But later on, as a teenager, 2 experiences quickly turned me into an admirer of literature. One was a friend who shared with me his great passion for science fiction classics, from George Orwell to Philip K. Dick, which I also loved from then on. And the other experience was my fascination with a German literary critic named Marcel Reich-Ranitzky, who spoke about literature on television with such strong opinions and entertaining flair that I immediately wanted to read whatever book he discussed. Why am I sharing this little anecdote? Because I believe it's the people we see and meet and the experiences we have that can inspire us to discover new interests and ignite new passions. Events like the PAGYA Festival offers exactly that kind of space, a place where encounter and interaction can spark curiosity, broaden horizons, and simply make us feel home. Just a year ago, for example, I attended a panel here featuring an author. I spoke with him afterwards, bought his book, and read it. 1 year later, Professor Frankie Dosian is one of my dearest friends in Accra, and someone from whom I've learned a lot. And I hope and wish that PAGYA 2025 will be just such a place where we meet and inspire each other, motivate one another, and establish friendships. Never before have we welcomed so many international guests to PAGYA as we do this year. We're also joined by both long-standing and new partners. So the conditions, I think, are perfect to make this event truly unforgettable. That's why I want to thank Writers Project of Ghana, especially Martin and Mamle, for putting this together every year. I cannot express enough my admiration for your dedication, and I hope you'll find even more support for this project in the future. I also want to thank all the supporters. I also want to thank all the supporters and partners, the FCA, the EUD, various embassies, local organizations, and individuals for being part of this. Let's continue to support PEJA with full force, especially as we look forward to celebrating its 10th anniversary next year. Of course, thank you also to all writers, artists, everyone who made their way to Ghana, and also those who are already in Ghana, and who make this event so special. Thank you, of course, also thank you to all volunteers, technical support, vendors, and others involved. Your support is appreciated a lot. Last, but certainly not least, I want to thank my entire team here at the Goethe Institute, who give their all every year. But one person deserves one special mention. Elizabeth Johnson, our colleague and the festival manager. She's been delivering outstanding work year after year, and we're lucky to call such a committed person our colleague. Thank you very much. And now there's nothing left to say but Akwaba and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So this year, one of our biggest collaborations is with the Bradford City of Culture under the Wandering Imaginations project. I know there is a big group from the Wandering Imaginations project. Can you show my hand? Please, a round of applause. We are happy to have you here. As a result of this project, there's an exhibition that's opening tomorrow at the Foundation for Contemporary Art. The exhibition opens in the afternoon, I believe at 1:30, so we hope that you all join us for the official opening. I would like at this point to introduce the director, Bradford 2025 UK City of Culture, Shanan's, my lawyer, Gulza. Did I mention it?
Yes.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. I chose to leave my extra eyes at the hotel, and so I'm speaking having tried to memorize what I was going to say today. I'm really grateful to be here today. My team came and did a residency with fantastic artists and a fantastic team from PEJA earlier this year. Some of you may not know what a UK City of Culture is. Every 4 years, the UK celebrates arts, culture, creativity, all the arts. So theatre, literature, contemporary art, music, indoors, outdoors, in communities, and it's for a whole year. Professor Sutherland asked me earlier, so how do you do a whole year? Adrenaline and passion and maybe a little bit alcohol. And food, let's not forget food. Also, this partnership, Wandering Imaginations, it was working with the British Council, asking the British Council to come on this journey with us. A UK City of Culture is an opportunity to give a city, a place in the UK, culture, creativity as the change and regeneration for a place, putting arts at the heart of it. Bradford is one of the youngest cities in the UK. 30% of our population is under 25. We are one of the most diverse cities in the UK. Hence, someone like me is stood here as a director of the UK City of Culture. These things don't happen by accident, they happen by design. So this year was trying to create opportunity by design, asking the British Council to come on this journey with us, to fund us. Through the British Council, finding out about Pagia Festival, introducing Pagia to the Bronte parsonage, and I'm sure none of you studied the Brontes at school, so I don't know anything about the Wuthering Heights or Jane Eyre or Emily Bronte.
We know.
But to bring these women, these writers, who in a village at the top of a hill in Bradford, in Yorkshire, over 150 years ago, created amazing stories. How do we take their legacy and create opportunity for young women now in the 21st centuries to create new work and new stories? How do we take that history and that legacy? How do we also create a partnership between Bronte Parsonage? This is their first international project. They're an internationally recognized museum, their first partnership. How do we create opportunity for 4 fantastic women, 2 from the UK and 2 from Ghana? Akofa, where are you? Can you put your hand up? There we go. Peggy, where are you? No hiding. There we go. Thank you. Straight up. Claire, I'm looking straight at you. And Christina. But also, huge thanks to Temi, who is also, where are you? There we go. Thank you very much. Our mentor. These projects bring people together, they bring teams together, they create opportunity. It's my first time in Ghana. I will definitely be back. It definitely gets into your soul, this country and the people. But also, right now, in the world, as things are, arts, culture, creativity, imagination couldn't be more important now. Pagia, you are 9 years old. I can't see Martin anywhere, but I did say to him earlier this year, this is already a very big festival. I'm really looking forward to next year being even bigger and even better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I'll have to welcome a representative from the EU delegation. She has been very supportive, always supporting us and helping us. Margot is already coming. I know. Always helping us. Always helping us, get some funding for this project, and we are very grateful. Let's welcome Margot Pitura.
Good evening, everyone. I don't use the second pair of eyes, but I see that you all look nice, believe it or not. Okay, so I represent the European Union, and I will do some speech to you. Excuse me, I will have to look a bit in the paper because I was inspired and I wrote a lot. So, good evening again, and Akwaba to Ghana, director of Goethe Institute hosting us. I acknowledge you. I acknowledge all the excellencies, ambassadors, and members of the diplomatic corps being here. I acknowledge the director and the staff of the Pagia Festival. Big thank you to you. And all of you, partners, representatives of civil society, government of Ghana, writers, and creative industries, good evening to you, and already have a nice weekend. It is 4th time in a row that the European Union, we are supporting the Pagia Festival. It has become a tradition for us that we will be continuing, because we believe in the power of literature and of poetry. Now you may wonder why the EU is supporting a festival. Because you might see that we are those wearing suits, wearing ties, going to meetings, talking to ministers and politicians. Well, we also do that, but we love festivals. And we support art and creative industries because we are convinced it will help Ghana and Ghanaian youth in particular prepare for their future in all the aspects. Let me choose something not to be too long. Literature is an important feature in our lives. Often we simply don't even realize, because if you remember, from the earliest days of education, when we are 3, 4-year-old, our parents read to us. And it is a compass of our self-development for the rest of our lives. Literature as well helps to bridge our countries, our communities, and our continents together. With support to this festival, we encourage those connections because this is also the beauty of books, of poetry. It resonates to different people in different places because we often find the universal values and messages of tolerance, inclusion, and daily struggles of life when we read. Okay, another excerpt. The EU in Ghana also supports the cultural and creative sectors more widely because we believe this is an engine of economic growth. And this year we are launching 2 important programs. One specific of support to heritage and culture in Ghana, of the name Sankofa 2. Another program that is a bit more entrepreneurship oriented, but through which we will also be supporting creative industries, is being started right now. And it's co-financed by the EU, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the name Green, Digital and Inclusive Private Sector Development, where we will have specific support to creatives on access to finance, capacity building, and other forms of support. All right, we also just launched the big regional program for the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa, the Africa-Europe Partnerships for Culture. The program supports creative sector throughout Africa. And what is very important, international exposure, because we also want the creatives to go beyond Africa as well as intra-Africa to foster their connections and also their visibility to other people and other nations. So on this program, you can find specific information, and I encourage all the artists to have a look at the websites. I repeat the title, Africa-Europe Partnerships for Culture, with very interesting calls for festivals as well as mobility of artists and other. And now let me end by saying that we are focusing through this festival on African, on Ghanaian literature, but also I hear that there are 42 different writers who took a flight to come here. So the festival is growing, is very international, and this is brilliant. This is why we don't have to wait for 10th edition, because already this edition is going to be fantastic. And I wish you all to enjoy this 3 days and have a good night. Thank you.
Okay, with a round of applause, let's thank all our supporters, everybody who has come on stage to show their support for the festival. Thank you also so much for the attention you've given us all. With this in mind, we would like to introduce our headliners for tonight. And they really do not need introduction. So first up, I will call on stage Mrs. Judith Opoku-Boateng. A round of applause, please. And our second panelist would be Professor Esi Sutherland-Addy. So who gets to archive our culture? What gets preserved and what gets lost? And how do these choices shape the Ghana we remember, celebrate, or even resist? With this in mind, let's join our panelists for tonight's discussion. Thank you so much, Professor Esi Sutherland-Addy and Mrs. Judith Opoku-Boateng. I will welcome Elizabeth Johnson, who will be our moderator for tonight. Elizabeth, thank you.
Okay, I believe we are good to go. Oh, they're still fixing the microphone. we good to go? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience as we sorted out the microphones. And I'll introduce myself again. My name is Elizabeth Johnson. I will be moderating this conversation, but I think I'll be very quiet because we have two very able women who have worked in the cultural scene for a while to guide us through a very entertaining and educative conversation. Tonight, the conversation that I would like to have would center around archiving, photos, and storytelling. And just behind us, you can see some images on the screen that will be moving as we have the conversation, and we would tell you about those images while the conversation goes on. I will open for questions as the conversation goes on. So if you have notes or comments, thoughts, questions that you'd like to ask, please know that you would be welcomed when the time is due. But now I'd like to get into the conversation. Thank you so much, Professor Sutherland-Addy and Mrs. Opoku-Boateng, for joining us. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
I think I'd like to get into the conversation by trying to understand what archives means to the two of you from your experience and working in with stories and photographs, and not just that, but in the other aspects that you work. How does archive play a role in the experience that you've had? So I'd like to start with Mrs. Opoku-Boateng.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for this. Since the GYA director decided to be anecdotal, let me also try to go that way, and explaining my concepts of archiving. About 3-4 years ago, my youngest daughter came to me. I was busy cooking some palm nut soup. It takes a lot of energy and effort and, time to prepare that. So she came to the kitchen, and I was not ready to entertain her on any conversation. Then she asked me, "Mommy, so you say you are an archivist?" I said, "Yes." "What do archivists do?" Because I was talking to Nanama, and she said her mother is a doctor. I was talking, and the mother takes care of patients. And I was talking to Elizabeth, and she said Elizabeth's mother is a teacher. She teaches. So what do archivists do? So how do I break this down to the level of a 7-year-old? So I just looked at her and said, "Well, we wake up the dead." So she looked at me and said, "You wake up the dead?" I said, "Yes." Then I realized she was still curious. Meanwhile, I was still busy cooking. And then she said, "How do you wake up the dead?" I said, "Well, we wake up the dead in history." "Oh, okay. So we've been doing history, and then they've been mentioning Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And then Kwame Nkrumah is dead in history. He's one of the people I would love to see. So can archivists wake him up?" So then I had to sit down, and really go deeper. So I told my daughter Ajwa, I told her, "Well, archivists together with historians come together, to make sure that those who are dead in history are very much alive. We wake them up. Kwame Nkrumah is dead, but Kwame Nkrumah's philosophies are still evident everywhere. We open the radio on Independence Day, and then we hear the voice. Ghana, our beloved country, is free forever. So is Kwame Nkrumah not alive?" He said, "Oh, so this is what archivists do." So this is how, I explained that to my daughter. Yeah. So in explaining this to my daughter, then I'm also trying to redefine the concept, to myself, as an archivist, that do we as archivists sit down and allow all our dead ancestors to continue to die in history? Then we are not doing the work as archivists. So for me, as archivists, we collect, we preserve, and then we make whatever we collect and preserve very much alive, by way of access, by creativity and all that. Let me quote one of my favorite guiding principles, something that has guided me all through my working in the Nketia archives. We were digitizing some reel-to-reels, and then we came across a quarter-inch open reel, which was recorded in 1963, and it was a convocation speech by Nketia, J.H. Kwabena Nketia. So we played it. I kept playing it over and over because the words were very sweet. So I had to memorize it and permit me to quote. It says, African traditional arts should be recorded. They should be preserved. They should not merely be recorded, preserved, but practiced as living art. That we believe that the arts must develop and that the study of African traditions should inspire creative experiments in the African idiom. So this tells us that as archivists, we have to collect, preserve, but then most importantly, we need to bring creativity, in the materials we give access to. So this is what this is how I want to. Let me also share another anecdote. Last year, I was called to teach some level 300 students in the School of Performing Arts about archiving the performing arts. And then I threw it up to the students. How many were they? I think about 30, level 300. And then I asked them, what is archives? Can you please tell me what archives is? And then they were like, oh, okay. It's a collection of important things, things that we might need in the future. An archive is a place we keep things that, we will have access to, we might need in the future. An archive is a very cherished collection, a very cherished storage space, cherished, so everything. Then I realized there was a problem. You know what the key word was? Archives for the future. So the young people at that age think that the archive is sitting somewhere, and then it is waiting to be accessed by some future generation. So they don't feel very much connected, to the archive. And I saw that as a problem. So I think as the conversation goes on, we talk about this more. Thank you so much.
Most definitely. Thank you. A round of applause for that introduction. I think it was well done. We got to understand what archives means to a 7-year-old. We brought it up to our level and taking it into the future. So Mrs. Judith has done something very quickly for us. I would like to now move on to Auntie Esi, as we affectionately call her. While you are not I would say, not a trained archivist, you have become one way or the other with the work that you do. Another group of people who are notorious for hoarding and keeping and collecting documents are academics, and we all know that. And you are one of our high-profile academics in the country who focuses on African literature and African studies. And so I would like to hear your thoughts on, in your experience as an academic, how archive has played an important role with the work that you do.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. Good evening, and I want to thank the organizers for asking me to come and share. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say that I was saying, but I think what I will share is two things. One is being having a legacy of different archives that have come into my possession and into the possession of the people I work with, and which willy-nilly, you find yourself with all this precious material, and you're asking yourself what on earth you are going to do with it. So at the moment, I can speak of 3 archives that I have to think about what to do with, or three collections of materials. One of them is the collection of materials by my mother, Esi Sutherland, who went around the country collecting folk tales. Can you hear me now? Yeah, all right. If you can't, we'll use the other mic. Okay. Collecting folk tales, collecting myths, collecting metadata around festivals, pictures, audio visuals, and I mean, it's like, okay, so what do you do with this? So I have that. I have the materials from my father, Bill Sutherland, who was a civil rights activist and who interfaced with people from all over the world. And we've got his letters, and we've got his books, and we've got photographs, and it's like, okay. So there's that one. And then there's the archive of Willis Bell, an American photographer who came to Ghana in 1958 and stayed here until 1999 and was able to photograph Ghana from north to south, east to west. So we have an archive of around 60,000 negatives of Ghana and 4,500 prints. I mean, what would you do if you had to deal with all of that? So I've had to work with a brilliant group of young people and members of my family and so on to find like-minded people, to look for the funding, to preserve and digitize these materials and find a way of making them available to the public. And so part of my life has been doing that. And then I myself, I think that, Elizabeth, this is because you've been to my house that you are saying that I hoard. You should see my study. It is a mess. I've got books under my table, on top of my table, I've got documents all over the place that I have to deal with. So, I mean, I don't know how long I'm going to live, but for the rest of my life, I'm going to have to find a way to make these, to preserve these and make them available. But all jokes aside, honestly, there is just a plethora of materials that people need to have access to that are hiding in corners and places. And I think, Judith and I work in the same place, and I think one of the things that is beginning to happen, which is wonderful but also overwhelming, is that people are beginning to understand that when they lose, members of their family who have been doing a lot of work, there's somewhere to bring them, right? So for me, that's the other thing, making people understand that what they own and have and the legacies that they have are vital for all of us. And so that for me is another thing that is really eating me up. And there are so many people who have said, oh, our uncle, wrote things in these notebooks, but they are rubbish, so we burnt them. And it's like, oh, please, I beg. So it's, we really have the conscientization of people about how important their lives are and how important the lives of their families are and how important the people in small communities, the indigenous knowledge that they have. All of that is something that has occupied me. And before, I stop talking, which is quite a difficult thing for people to, but before I stop talking, I need to say that my work, a lot of my work has been in oral literature. And I, in the course of this discussion, I want to project an idea of the living archive. The idea that we have ways of conserving, projecting, transmitting the knowledge that we have, the philosophies that we have, the practices that we have now in our societies, and we need to recognize those things. And that should affect any of us who want to go out to collect, because the attitude of the collector is important. So we can talk about that, because it really affects, you know, what you come up with. And for people who have to now do the preservation, you can give people a headache if you haven't done the collection properly. So let me stop here, and then we can continue.
Thank you for that. I think it's a good start. I'm actually glad you brought up the idea of oral storytelling, because I personally feel that it is a very it plays an important role in the identity of African culture and the way that we preserve things. And it leads me into my question. This is going to be lengthy, but I'm sure it would make sense. Auntie Esi says she likes talking. My questions tend to be so long, but it will come together. Both of you work at the African Studies Institute at the University of Ghana, which was set up with the support of Kwame Nkrumah, whose main goal was to see that the African and Ghanaian way of telling our own stories is highlighted into the university system. And one of the reasons why he wanted to do this was that he believed that while we were producing a lot of academics and smart people, we were producing people who were tailored to a certain Western way of understanding things. And so oral storytelling and the theater art department played a central role, and then the J.H. Nketia archives also came up. So where I'm going with this is, how do we, with even the rise in interest in archiving, how do we center the identity of how Africans preserve our stories with oral storytelling within the importance of archiving? Because the idea of archiving is very Western. It's about writing, it's about documents, keeping them, you know, showcasing them, which is not how we have entirely done things. We have had griots who pass on stories from generation to generation. We have used music as a way to, you know, preserve stories of the everyday. Sorry about that, Ghanaian and African. So I really would love to hear, maybe I start with you, Mrs. Judith, how do you think we can revisit the idea of what archiving means to us as Africans and Ghanaians, and how that can become a center stage with the way archives have become a big thing now? I hope the question has come together nicely. I hope so, yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You know, in African culture, orality plays a key role, you know, in African traditions and in our cultures. Let me just share a recent experience. I think a couple of weeks ago, we were tasked by the director of the institute to go to Kumasi to document the funeral of the Queen Mother who passed. I remember we documented the first one who died in 2016, 2017. And when we got to the field, anytime I get to the field, I become mesmerized. You know, that's wow. So things like this still exist, because I've been archiving stories that were collected from 1940s, 1950s, 1960s. And I was thinking that maybe some of these do not even still exist, or we don't even practice them, but they still play a role. I mean, you still see them live. I record this time, I can just pick my phone here, and you can get about thousands and thousands of, you know, all kinds of oral traditions, you know, on my phone. For us as Africans, I feel, as Auntie mentioned, we have a living heritage, right? And the living heritage is like, sometimes when I attend a funeral and I see things going on, performances being played, drumming being played, I detach myself, from the program, pick my phone, as if I'm not the person that is coming to mourn. I stand somewhere, I have to document, because I feel this is like, it's passing, and maybe we might not even capture it. So I feel this plays a key role, and I think it's something that needs to be archived. And we also, talking about the Living Archive, there's a project that we have embarked on. It's called the Living Archives Project, where we thought there's so much knowledge that is embedded in the heads, literally, of the elderly. I see people lamenting about how much we have lost our archives, to whatever structural adjustment programs, whatever, all kinds of things in the past. And we think that's, it's gone, and we are wasting and spending time lamenting and all that. I will use this, is it proverb or what it's called? So whatever, until you see, whatever, literally meaning, whatever the crows have come to consume, let them take and go. Whatever is left, we will protect, right? As I look here, I see Professor Ajido who's sitting here. This man is a whole resource. How many of you have gone to him to access all the information that is embedded in his head? Auntie Esi here, sitting here, I've worked with her for a number of years, more than a decade, right? Yes, Auntie Esi is so rich in knowledge, but we can just put a camera on her and capture so much, and all this is just playing around us, so I feel we need to, what has been recorded, we need to make sure we archive and bring them back to life. As I mentioned earlier, the ancestors that are sleeping, we should wake them up. But then the ones that are still there and have not been accessed, time is running out. We have no choice. We have to really, really do something. I remember Professor Ben Abdallah, of blessed memory, called me about 2 months ago. I was out of the country, and I told him I was doing a documentary on Professor Mary Opoku, and he said, I have so much to say about him. Make sure, come to me, let's talk. I said, Prof, I'll come to you. I came back and said, Judith, I'm trying to call, will you come? I was in the middle of too many things. I said, Prof, I will come. I thought he's going to live forever. The next time I saw my Facebook, he just flashed like that with his daughter announcing that he's passed. In fact, I cried. I was looking on my phone like this and shaking and crying because there's so much that was in this man. He's gone. So we don't have time. They are around us. We need to find every way possible to document them and keep them, for now and then for the future. I don't see archives for the future, for now and then for the future. Yeah, thank you.
Auntie Esi, do you want to respond to that and then maybe also give your thoughts on the question?
This one. Thank you. Hello? Oh, all right. A few quick points just to push the conversation a little bit further. One is that, Kwame, is it possible for us to show the short clip on the procession of the Asantehene as he emerges on one of these occasions from his palace? Because the processions that go with traditional leaders often are a living archive, an archive in motion. So you have, everything has a meaning. So there's somebody who carries the keys to the palace. There's somebody who carries the treasury of the king on his head. There's somebody who carries the head of a lion. Yeah, okay. So this is the person clearing the path. You have the elders. You have the keys to the palace. And also showing that he has the keys to the kingdom. You have the various, everybody in this procession is formally there. You have the horn blowers who are telling you to stay out of the path of this powerful person. You have coming up, yeah, you have the lion head that sits at his feet. You have his footrests. You have his spokespersons. You have the shield bearers that recall the days of war when they used spears and swords and so on. You have evidence of the influence of Europe with the old guns. That's the treasury, it's got gold dust in it representing the king, and these are all the spokespersons of the king. And in the middle of that is the king processing along. But by the time you see him, his importance has already been established, his pedigree has already been established, the historical background from which he comes has already been established, his importance to his people has been established, and this does happen continuously. And as long as there isn't a break, we will be able to recall our history, and I call that part of our living archive. But what is happening, which is a real problem, is that many younger people are actually dissociating with this kind of culture. And with that, you can, in one generation, you can lose the meaning of all this. You can lose the importance of it. You can lose the heart and soul of our communities. So I think that I just had this, and thank you, Kwame Krenzel, for pulling this down for us. I just had this done because I didn't know any other way of sharing what I meant by the living archive and the fact that this happens consistently over a period of time. And you will see from it, of course, also that even though I'm saying that young people are dissociating, there are many different age groups in that procession. Anyway, so that's just one way of looking at things. But I think that the other thing that I would say, Elizabeth, the issue that you are raising is a vital issue in terms of making resources available to people who are creating. And one of the things that archives, I think, must and do is to provide the foundational material for people who are creating, so that they can go back and recreate settings and characters and untold stories and so on, based on actual research that has been done and which has been preserved. So I really believe in the need for people who are creating to consult the archives to be able to find, resources. And I say resources. I, for example, discovered from doing a project on tales. I've tried to collect with my colleagues tales from different parts, folk tales from different parts of Ghana, and I have discovered some monsters that I didn't know existed, and I want to share that we've always been talking about just a few archetypes, the spider and so on and so forth. But I have discovered an airway monster. She's called Gachiku, and she is a huge female monster. and she's covered with a tangle of hair from top of her head to her feet, and the hair on her head falls over her face so that you can't see it. I was like, wow, I've never met this monster in storytelling. I found some dwarfs from the Dagari culture that, you know, who are, they are called fairies, you know, by anthropologists, but they are dwarfs, and it makes me wonder what, you know, about stories about people, indigenous people of Ghana, and whether or not the indigenous people of Ghana were of smaller stature and a lighter hue. It's a little bit like Southern Africa, really, the sun and so on. I just wonder, you know, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What can you recreate that? Can we use what we have found in the stories to recreate a time past, or a time that is in our fantasy that gives us a new way of looking at it, and a refreshed, you know, set of settings and characters and so on that we can use instead of just depending on the one or two that we've been using. Yeah. So those are, I mean, some of the ideas that I have on that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Auntie Esi. And in your contribution, you did mention the importance for us to go into these archives, into these resources, and find, you know, the things that are hidden. Hidden gems is a very popular word among the Gen Zs, so I'll bring it in. So to find the hidden gems and, you know, highlight them and use them in creative work. But I would like to hear your thoughts on this accessibility. Historically, archives have been very inaccessible, politically and socially. I think that the higher class and educated class like to keep things hidden so that the other classes do not have access to them. Even within the educated folk, to access certain things is difficult because the government is maybe pushing back on certain things. I can give an example. A lot of historians and journalists and writers in Ghana complain about the lack of stories when it comes to Rawlings's era, and how there has been an intentional, allegedly, before they arrest me, an intentional keeping of his documents, his stories, and the things that he did away from public use. And it may take another 40, 50 years after his death before these things will be let out. And so we do suffer accessibility. So how do we then break these walls that have been systematically built, especially for young people who also then suffer accessibility when it comes to infrastructure, technology, and, you know, just being able to access things easily, even on the internet where we think things are easily accessible, they are not, because you need to pay for JSTOR, you need to have a good phone with internet and things like that. How do you think we can, you know, gradually break down these walls so that these archives and documents and stories are available to people who are genuinely interested in even just reading about them?
With the, oh, all right. Okay, so I think Judith has a story to tell about Rawlings and stories about him. So I'll leave that to her, because she's had an amazing, you know, ally, you know, in discovering, you know, photographically. But I want to differ with you slightly. I think part of the idea is that we haven't made archives appear to be a place or a space that you should have any reason to go into, right? So I think that the way that we train and teach in the formal educational system doesn't encourage young people to feel that they have anything to do in a space like that. And so I mean, having taught for a million years, I think that I can take, we should take responsibility for this. I mean, this is something that we really ought to take responsibility for, so that we can make people feel welcome to go and feel that it's their right to go into these spaces. So that's something that I think, I wish I could give that much credit. And I've been a minister before, so I'm not speaking on it. I wish I could give that much credit to political people for thinking that far, in that kind of thing. They just, it's out of neglect rather than anything else, So I think that that's one thing that I would say. But the second point that I want to make about this issue is that if you are in a hurry to produce your work, and you don't think that you should do any extra work. Now, I mean, those of you who are creatives here, you can come and kill me afterwards if you think that I've misrepresented you. But sometimes I feel as if people don't think that doing a whole bunch of research is something that they need to do. I'm talented, I can put words together, and so on and so forth. But I've seen a number of works, Manu Hepstein, which many of you know, and who many of you know, and who has read, I mean, his story about the enslavement and the enslavement of a woman, a heroine that eventually ends up on the other side in Brazil, and so it's the amount of work that he did, and we are lucky because he's brought us his background work, but he had to do a lot of work, and when you read that story, there's a certain authenticity to it. So, I mean, I do want to encourage, creatives to take the trouble, to go and look in these spaces and see what they can, and interact with the materials that are in the spaces. And as far as the internet is concerned, one thing that I want to do in my retirement is understand how it works, and why it is that people who have so much access to so much information restrict themselves in so much into a bubble that they are not using it to see a wider world. Because I mean, again, listen, during question time, I'm available to be murdered about not understanding. But I mean, honestly, I don't. There is a lot out there. Perhaps again, how do we get guided into using the internet in a way that that benefits us as people, as creatives? But I'm very, very excited about technology and how it opens these kinds of doors to us, and I'm very excited about the possibility of skipping writing and going straight from speaking and enactment and performance and so on, from the performer, from the indigenous knowledge holder and so on, to those of us who are there to listen. And I think that if we we don't have to be bogged down by not being able to write or not being able to write. And if we can, I mean, there's just so much that could be done. Right. So I'm making 2 points. One of them is that I mean, I really think that, yes, I agree, you could be, there are some bureaucratic and other problems, but honestly, we need to make people aware that this is also their space and they can come into it, and it's not some restricted, rarefied, sort of area. And the second thing, which I hope can be spoken about, is how can we use technology to access more instead of it closing us off And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be, I'm happy for people to say so. All right, yeah.
Mrs. Juliet, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you. These days, I really get excited, seeing young men craving for archival resources to do new things. I really get very fascinated seeing that. And at the same time, I get sad. It makes me sad that many of the resources they need are locked up, in spaces that are inaccessible to these people for, to use. I think there are several factors. Many of you know, our governments do not prioritize heritage archives. It's a fact. When you go to our national archives and you look at the situation, it is bizarre, But as I said, I will still refer to that thing about the bed, that's near the materials, many of them have deteriorated, and when you go to those spaces, the value of the materials are locked, some maybe we can salvage and save, some are gone, but I feel there's still hope, for these materials. And when you look at such situations, we are always talking about government, and then blaming the government. But at this point, I feel we need like activists, to play some key role in getting into these spaces and see what can we do. I feel archiving is like a care work. I developed a model called baby nursing model, in archives. So as a principle, so if you can't, if you do not have money, like under-resourced archives, we should see these materials as babies, as human babies that need care. We need to conscientize ourselves, on that part. Again, we need, I call them accidental archivists. So if the real archivists who are, put in these spaces, some of them, they are gripped because they can't even talk. They cannot talk because when you talk, you lose your job. Because when you talk, it's against your boss, so you lose your job. So they are just looking at the materials. And okay, me, I only have 3 years to go. When I resign and when I retire and I go, I don't care. Another person is sitting by the materials, very rich collection, and me, Auntie Judith, I'm doing some course in marketing. So me, I'm just here. So when when I'm done with my master's, I leave. These are some of the, the perceptions heritage practitioners have, because they are not motivated, and some don't even know the value of the materials they are preserving, and that is sad. So we who are craving for these materials to create new things, I think we need to find ways of being activists, and then try to save the collection, work through the people, and then I'm sure we can bring them out again, or we can save them. I've worked with academics for a long time, maybe over about 30 years of my life, yes. I'm sorry to say this, Auntie Esi, and then they, some are a bit selfish. They collect all kinds of resources, keep them in their drawers. They are not allowing people access because I need to publish. If I give it out and I publish, I give it out, you publish before me, and so they are locked. Many of them are locked up. I can go around the campus and you'll be surprised at the kinds of materials that are locked up in individual drawers and all that. Unfortunately, some pass prematurely, and then the families don't even know what to do with them. They burn them, and also this is how we loose materials, very rich materials, So I don't know how we can write those two, shake up the minds of academics, to bring this. The other thing is we did a project, Bernard is here, we did a project called Heritage Photo Lab. With support from Goethe Institute and Institut Français, right? It was a COVID project, yes. And we realized that there were very, very rich vintage pictures that are hidden in the boxes and in the drawers of individuals and institutions. So we came together and then we sourced for these images and people brought them, fantastic projects, And then we mounted a very big exhibition. He curated it, Bernard curated it. I think there's a book on that, right? Yeah. So this tells us that there's still heritage around us. We are surrounded by very rich resources. How do we go for them? With the case of Rawlings, you mentioned Rawlings? Yes. I was there one day when a friend of mine, Jesse Shipley, is a professor in Dartmouth College. He's been a friend from 1990s. He called me and said, Judith, they should meet me in Laboni. We should access a collection. I'm like, which collection, And me, I love those days. So I jumped in and then met him. We went to the house of the photographer who photographed Rawlings. It was a freelance photographer, Gerald Annan-Forsen. He followed Rawlings throughout, during all the AFRC period, the PNDC era, the NDC era, John Mahama, Atta Mills, all through. The materials were there, but this man, I'll call him an accidental archivist because as much as he was a photographer, he also thought about the future. So he properly archived the materials. They were in perfect shape, negatives and positives, anything you can find on Rawlings. So if there's anybody here who is doing the research on Rawlings, see me in chambers when you live here, Yeah. So we worked with Gerald. He was struggling to manage the collection. We worked with him. He bought almost about 200,000 negatives and positives. Yeah, we had a few challenges along the way, but at least the materials are there. They have been, we're archiving, in the process of archiving, and then we lost him. Yeah, so at least they're digitized, but we didn't finish putting all the captions, but we did a lot of work from 2021 to date. We did a lot of work on that. So there's still stuff, there's still resources there, so please let's scout for these materials. When you see them and you cannot manage them, I feel you should look for archives around you that you feel you can, send the materials there, And then I also want to send a call to people who are managing archives. Please, let's make these archives as very convivial. Let's make the spaces as convivial as much as possible. Funders who are here, please, I'm sure some of us will be coming to you because we want to create some very nice, romantic setting archives, We want to make archiving somehow sexy in Ghana because they are dead. Archives are looking like old women. We need to, some archives, not all, some. I'm sorry, some, let's try to make them very attractive, So when we come to you for that, please release some for us and then, yeah. And then let's see how we can tell our story and retell our stories, for generations to come. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Mrs. Judith, we are 3 women sitting up here. Should have said like old men. I mean, that was a perfect chance. Well, I've taken so much from what you just submitted. Unfortunately, we are really running out of time. There's so much to explore in this. I think we should revisit this conversation in subsequent editions of the festival. But I'd like to just add that I believe that seeing my contemporaries, there are lots of people who are interested in archives and trying to use their creativity to explore archiving. Many may not know how to archive yet, but they are on their way to visiting archives and seeing it's almost like my cue to end. I'll wrap up soon. So they're on their way to collecting and visiting and showcasing. I remember a few weeks ago, there was something on Hotel Archives by a friend, Nuna. There's another guy who does the U experience. There's Rita who does the umbrella stuff with the archives. The Khan Center also has a huge archive studio that they are building. So there's this resurgence of archiving in the contemporary space, and I think that creatives have come in and are making it sexy. So we are getting there little by little. I believe that as that happens, institutions will then see how they can also support in supporting these creatives in developing these into proper archives. Because from this conversation, I've realized that there's collecting and then there's proper archiving. I'd like to open the floor for 2 comments. We unfortunately cannot take questions. So 2 comments. I've seen 2 hands. Oh, okay. So 2 comments and then we would end this. Oh, but I'm sorry. I'd have to give reverence to Professor Nidoho, who would like to say something. And so we'll see if we can take the other 2 because there are 2 hands that shot up, and then we'll end for this session.
Thank you for for allowing me to make an observation. I'd like to remind all of us that it's very easy for us sometimes to accuse many of our traditional people of holding on to things and not allowing access. But we must remember that some of the things they may be holding on to can become sources of conflict if they let go. The same way that there are traditions of knowledge where certain things are kept classified and are declassified only after. For instance, a president's collections. It's only after some time that open access could be granted. And it is not necessarily because they don't want to, but they are very much aware of the fact that some of that information can become a source of what? Conflict right now if they let go of some of the information. If you've done extensive research, field work, I've had situations in which I was told, okay, we will answer that question, but please turn off your recording machine first. We will give you the answer as a son of the family or the community, and you deserve to know, but we don't want you to take it out to the outside world for now. And sometimes it may not make sense to you, but eventually you'll discover that if they were to let go of some of those, before you know, there is serious conflict, litigation at the minimum, sometimes open, and serious confrontations. So let's not be too quick in accusing the elders of holding on too much. Whatever they need to let go, sometimes they are going to call you, please come. Just as, and it doesn't have to be elders in the, for instance, Dr. Abdallah, reaching out to her, please come. Maybe something already told him that he needed to share this information And hey, sometimes we are the ones who are too busy to to go and listen. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the two comments very quickly. So please try to make it sweet and short, and so that we can move on to the next.
Yeah, it is a few observations. I think even though archives are so important, in our country, we should also acknowledge how we pass knowledge on. And it's important that we ourselves, taking that knowledge, passing it on. Because if you remove yourself from that situation and looking at the other person or looking at the archive, which doesn't exist, then that knowledge is truly dead. So there should be parallel ways of accessing information. And Auntie Esi, when the reel was playing, I remembered when the last Queen Mother died, a number of people in Accra were like, we are off. And I was a bit confused because they all had a role to play in the funeral or in the Ashanti tradition. But when you see them here in Accra, they're wearing their suits, they're lawyers or whatever it was. But in their families, once that thing happens, you would have seen them in the procession, carrying this, doing that. So I'm like, wow. So all these people have a role to play and they know when to put their hands down. Do I? Do you? So we also have a role to play in passing on our tradition and not, play a very active role within your family. What are you passing down to your children, or what are you asking your parents? So yeah, that's my comment.
We'll take the last one. Yeah.
Greetings. My name is Efe. I want to say thank you for this conversation. Speaking as semi-young, I'm a millennial, but maybe a little older. As my own personal way of archiving, because my father is a griot, and so whenever I'm in the presence of my father, his friends, my mother, her friends, I press record. I have over 100 hours of my parents just talking about their extended family, stories, drama, what happened in the 70s. And I often wonder, what am I going to do with all of this footage and recordings of them talking? And so I just wanted to comment that, we are archiving in our own ways digitally. And I do hope to be able to use that or give it to an archival locally in the future, or now. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like now to turn back to the guest and say thank you so much for your time. I believe this conversation could go on and on forever, but I'd like to say thank you to Mrs. Judith Opoku-Boateng for making time, and also to Professor Esi Sutherland-Addy, Auntie Esi, as we call her, for making time. And we believe that we would visit this conversation again. I would like to mention that I believe the next two programs that we have speak nicely to what we've been discussing. We are going to see beautiful poetry performance by one of our guests joining us from Netherlands, Babs Gons. She will be performing some poetry. And right after that, we will go into a storytelling session. So we have a dramatized reading of a book, My Parents' Marriage. And so we still have a lot. And right after that, it never ends. There's a nice reception waiting for us. So we still have a lot to offer this evening. I see a full house, and I believe it's going to get fuller by the time that we are done. So give us some time to prepare for the next performance and also the theater session. And thank you. Okay, yes. I'd just like to mention that the Willis Bell Archive has been officially opened. And so if you go online and just Google Willis Bell Archives, the website will pop up. And this is an initiative that was launched a few weeks ago. And I think the exhibition ended today, the 17th, but there are other interesting programs that they have. But please Google the Willis Bell Archive and you will see you have access to the website that offers so much of archives that Willis Bell documented while he was in Ghana in Africa. He was a photographer, so please do check that out. And also please do visit the Jade Nketia archives at the University of Ghana. Thank you.